This time we are back in North Yorkshire and the historic market town of Knaresborough. Situated beside the incredible gorge of the River Nid, it's known for its beautiful scenery, quaint shops and fascinating past. Join us today to have a walk around, find out some of the history and learn why you should visit this stunning Yorkshire town. Knaresborough is situated a few miles from the famous spa town of Harrogate and just 25 minutes train ride from the medieval city of York, or 45 minutes from Leeds, making it very accessible to visit without a car. You'll arrive at this lovely period station, stepping off the train straight into the past. There are a number of car parks on the outskirts of town and prices are reasonable for a day's parking. We picked York Place. We are walking into the centre, heading for Market Place, and already you start to see the old shop fronts giving us a taste of the history and architecture to come in this pretty town. In front of us is the Market Cross. The base dates from the 1700s and the newer cross itself was added in 1953. A market has been held here since the time of King John and it was first mentioned around 1206. Wednesday is market day when stalls selling groceries, food and crafts set up to entice the visitors. Look out for the town crier as well, announcing the market to Knaresborough and ringing a bell, an old tradition that you don't see often in towns across the country these days. Around the cross are some benches on which you'll find two local characters of interest. This is Mother Shipton, a prophetess who lived in the 15th century. She was said to have foretold the Great Fire of London, the invention of iron ships and the fate of several rulers. We'll hear more about her later. The other is local hero Blind Jack, the nickname for John Metcalfe, born here in 1717. Losing his sight after contracting smallpox at the age of 6, his blindness didn't hold him back. Jack had an adventurous spirit and learned to play the violin, becoming an accomplished musician and eventually even a successful entrepreneur, working in a variety of industries. His greatest legacy working as a civil engineer responsible for the building of over 180 miles of turnpike roads in northern England. He died in 1810 at the age of 92, this local pub named after a remarkable man. Remaining in Market Place, we turn our attention to another landmark, which was formerly the oldest chemist shop in England. Now a tea room and tourist trinket shop, it was operated as a chemist dispensing medicines from 1720 to 1997. Across the square we see the Old Town Hall built in 1862. The upper floors would have been assembly rooms and the balcony for addressing the residents. The lower floors are now a shopping arcade. Notice the old market pitch pricing board still on the wall. Walking down Castle Gate are some examples of the town window public art. The windows are painted in a trompe-l'oeil style, which fools the eye into seeing something that looks real. The buildings originally had blocked out windows to avoid the 18th century window tax. You'll see a number of these across town. This sweet courtyard has a collection of shops, eateries and galleries, a far cry from its past. Starting in Tudor times, the manufacture of linen began as a cottage industry, and later Knaresborough became known for its fine cloth. In 1808, this was the flax mill, where raw flax was combed by hand and then spun and woven at other mills in the town. Let's now head to one of the town's main attractions, the ruins of the castle, where everybody heads to get those stunning views of the gorge and the railway viaduct from the cliffs that the castle is perched on. Knaresborough Castle was originally built in the 12th century by the Norman king Henry I. Most of what we see now was part of the 14th century rebuild by Edward II. It had 12 towers and this great keep, which is still partially standing today. During the English Civil War in the 17th century, the castle was held by the Royalist forces until it was besieged and captured by the parliamentarians. They began to partially dismantle it, with stones being used for other buildings in the town. However, the locals managed to persuade them to stop and use the keep as a jail. Hence we are left with the structure we see today. You can visit inside the castle from April to September for a small fee, heading down into the dungeons. Your ticket includes entry to the Tudor Courthouse Museum, built inside the castle grounds in the 17th century. It has many original features, including a large fireplace and wooden beams. You can see why it was an important fortress, as it has uninterrupted views of the lands around and below it. Everyone gravitates here to capture the iconic view of the railway viaduct that crosses straight into Knaresborough Station. The grounds around the castle are lovely at this time of year, with many spring flowers bringing a splash of colour around the war memorial. Below us is the River Nid dropping over the weir next to the old castle mill, in operation from 1770 to 1972. Initially pumping water up to the town, by 1811 it was the flax mill. It was granted a royal warrant by Queen Victoria as suppliers to all of the royal palaces. It has now been converted into 21 dwellings. Taking the steps beside the castle, we can walk down into the dry moat and see just how high the defences were. This was the first line of defence and would have once encircled the castle. Notice the two towers that were added to strengthen the curtain wall. From here we can access Bebra Gardens, a small tranquil oasis to get away from the crowds. It's free to walk around and features winding paths, evergreen foliage and steep descents. A paddling pool is filled in summer to help cool off. The gardens are named after the town of Bebra in Germany, with which Knaresborough is twinned. Having climbed back up to the viewing point, we can take another set of winding steps down to the water's edge and explore beside the River Nid. Known as Waterside, this path hugs the banks of the Nidd, 120 metres down in the gorge carved out by the river over 16,000 years ago on its way to the River Ouse. It is a lovely place for a walk, maybe stopping for a coffee or ice cream as you admire the buildings, some of which teeter on the cliff tops overhanging this area. We can now get a close-up look at the viaduct, the town's most famous landmark. It was built in 1851. Prior to this, shoddy workmanship caused the first bridge to collapse into the river in March 1848, just before it was due to open, killing hundreds of fish from the lime in the mortar. Thankfully, this one has stood the test of time and is quite magnificent. You'll find otters, brown trout, eels, chub and gudgeon along this stretch of the river. If you fancy a splash about on the river, then boats are available to hire from March to September. A tourist treat that has been running in these colourful red and green boats for over 100 years. Said to be the oldest attraction in the country, the entrance to Mother Shipton's cave is on the other side of the river, so you'll need to cross the road bridge. You can walk or drive into this attraction. The walk to see the cave and the petrifying well is delightful, seeing the town from a different perspective on the way. Known as the Long Walk, it was once part of the Royal Forest of Knaresborough. It was sold by King Charles I in 1630 to a local chap, Sir Charles Slingsby. His grandson, Henry, landscaped the park and created the paths we are walking on. Notice the black and white checkered house, the old manor house. No one knows exactly why it ended up with this exterior, but it dates from the time of King John, 1208, making it the oldest building in the town. Curiously, it has a stump and roots of an oak tree inside the house. It was said that when King John stayed at the castle, he would go out hunting and leave his attendants around a great oak tree. Later he built a hunting lodge around the tree. Could this be that oak tree? The legend of Mother Shipton, born Ursula Sonthel, starts with her mother. 15 and pregnant, she was banished from the town for not stating who the father was, and took refuge in a cave. One stormy night, Ursula was born. They lived in the cave for 2 years, drinking water from the magical well, before a local abbot took pity and helped them. Ursula was taken in by a local family, and she never saw her mother again. She was a strange child in looks and in nature, with the characteristics of a witch. She was teased and taunted, and returned to the cave to be alone. At 24, she met Tobias Shipton, a carpenter from York. He would die a few years later, but she kept his name. It wasn't until she was an old lady that she became known as Mother Shipton. Throughout her life, she had premonitions and learned to harness her powers. When she spoke, people listened and believed her word. She made a living from being a prophetess until she was 73, dying in 1561. How much of this tale is true, who can say, but it is known that a lady called Mistress Shipton lived in Knaresborough around that time. This is the magical petrifying well next to her birth cave. A natural lake a mile away brings the water here, where it bubbles up in a spring. As the water comes to the top, it passes through a porous layer of rock full of minerals, the most abundant of which is calcium carbonate. When the water touches objects, it sticks to it, forming a layer known as petrification. You can see some of the items hanging midway through that process. We'll see some up close later in the small museum. Behind a petrifying well, we find the dark, damp wishing well. This is the cave where Mother Shipton was said to have been born. In the museum, you can see more petrified items left by celebrities and TV presenters. Here is a handbag left by Agatha Christie. John Wayne left a cowboy hat. Walking back into town, we get a chance to see the weir up close, looking across at the old Castle Mill buildings. The castle is even just visible perched on the cliff top. Over on Waterside, some steep steps take us up the side of the gorge to St John the Baptist Parish Church. Records of a church on this site started in 1114. An interesting part of the church is the chapel of the Slingsby family. You recall Charles Slingsby bought the land from Charles I for the Long Walk. Here is the grave of Francis Slingsby, who died in 1600, and next to him, his wife Mary. Notably, she was the daughter of Sir Thomas Percy. He was implicated and executed for his part in the Gunpowder Plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament with Guy Fawkes. Sir William Slingsby, MP for Knaresborough, Commissary of the Fleet during the Queen Elizabeth I's reign and knighted by King James I in 1603. The last of the Slingsby line, Charles Slingsby, died in a hunting accident on the 4th of February 1869. The church has been through a number of restorations through the centuries. It was originally dedicated to St Mary, but was changed to its current name in the 16th century following reform after the English Reformation. This brings us to the lovely station, first opened in 1848. Notice the signal box still in use and usually attached to the end of the terraced houses. There is a little tea room on the platform and a bric-a-brac shop. Walking across the railway lines takes us back to Market Place where we started our walk. Knaresborough has been a delight to walk around. We were invited to visit the area by a local family-run luxury holiday homes business, maisonsparfaites.com. So if you're looking for somewhere to stay, do check out their website for beautiful properties all over Yorkshire. We have many more videos on Yorkshire, so do check out our playlist. It's a wonderful part of the country. Subscribe and give us a like, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching The Memory Seekers.